Hey y'all, Joe Turner again. I am making this video to talk you through the discussion forum post related to No Country for Old Men, which is due next Wednesday. There will be spoilers here, so if you are a person who does not like to have the text spoiled or the text revealed to them, please stop watching now, finish reading, and then come back once you've done that. Also, if you haven't watched the other video I made, the video to watch before you start reading, please do consult that. It's under course content / schedule, and then week 4. You should be able to find it there. If you would like to have your book ready, I think that would probably be a good idea. I will reference the text pretty frequently throughout here, and you may want to stop the video, take notes, reread that section, see if it gets ideas going for something for you to write about. All right, so we will jump right in. So question 1 is asking you basically to do a character sketch on Moss. He's one of the 3 major narrators we have, and the question that I begin with is, why doesn't Moss kill Chigurh when he has the chance on page 113? He lets him go despite knowing that Chigurh will not stop trying to kill him. So what does that say about Moss's character? What does it say when about him when he calls himself lucky and says that he's going to have to quit running out of luck, that he's going to have to be more thoughtful, have more foresight, and be much more on his A game, so to speak, if he's going to survive in a world where he's made a decision to keep that $2.4 million, right? You might also write about Moss's relationship with Carla Jean. What does that say about him? And or the runaway girl, right? When we see Moss die, he has just picked up that runaway girl, but whereas she seems interested in a romantic relationship with him, he shuts that down, doesn't do it, and the next thing we know, Sheriff Bell is identifying his dead body, right? So anything you might write about with this question revolves Moss as a character. Question 2 does the same thing for Chigurh, but Chigurh is a really enigmatic character. We don't get as much of him as we do with Moss, but we do get the things that he does say seem to be meaningful to him, at least, even if it's hard for us to understand exactly what he means, right? He strikes others as strange in that same scene where Moss lets Chigurh live. That's one of the only real descriptions of Chigurh that we get, right? So that's a place you would probably want to go and spend some time with that section and that passage. Chigurh's morality is one of the things that makes him so difficult to understand. Many of you probably are saying, well, clearly Chigurh doesn't have a moral system or doesn't have a sense of morality, but I think he does. It's just very, very strange and atypical. So what you might do with this paper is think through, what is his moral code? What is his attitude towards fate or chance or luck? Does he change throughout the novel? Does he develop in any particular way? And another question you might ask is, why does he kill Carla Jean? Because I think that question is absolutely related to his attitude towards fate and his idea in particular about promises. So I've got a couple more things you might look at if you're interested in question 2, right? When he's gets shot and is trying to nurse himself back to health, he never changes the channel on the TV. And this is before Netflix, right? So when you watch TV on a particular station, you would have to watch whatever they thought you should watch, interspersed with commercials. And I think that says something towards his attitude towards the world. He gets caught by the officer at the beginning of the novel whom he kills. He says he does that on purpose and says he wants to extricate himself by an act of will, or to pull himself out of that situation. Although he says it was a vain thing to do. Why? Why does he get caught on purpose? When he kills the man on the side of the road, he says he wants him to move away from the car so he doesn't get blood on it. And then when he kills the executive, the one who hires Wells to kill Chigurh, Chigurh says that he doesn't want to, quote, rain glass on people in the street, right? So is he capable of some weird kind of remorse here, or does he just not want to get caught, right? So if he shoots the window out, it's more likely that he might get caught. I don't know the answer to that, but, it would make for an interesting paper. As we were just saying, he's got a strange idea about promises, and he says he kills Carla Jean because he gave his word, even though the fact that Moss is already dead at this point. Why does he do it? Why, right? And he uses the coin to determine people's fate, such as Carla Jean or the man at the gas station. He doesn't really seem to believe in chance, right? He says that the way the world is not at all about luck. It's about things being in the right place at the right time, and you can always kind of see how things got to be that way if you look hard enough. Question 2, really, anything you're interested in about Chigurh as a character. Question 3, more broadly, what's the role of luck, chance, and or fate in the novel? Are luck and chance the same thing? Right? Perhaps, ironically, Wells says that he's lived a charmed life, and that charm runs out when Chigurh enters his life again. Carla Jean claims she had a dream she would meet her husband, and then she met Moss, and she seems to believe in fate because of that. Although her mother says something very different. She says her dream didn't have anything to do with it. Things would have turned out this way, no matter what. Whether or not you had that dream, right? Or that we might think about Moss's advice to the runaway about how no one ever really changes. And for example, the term luck appears throughout the novel on pages 108, 127, 130, 136, 152, 234, 257. There are probably others. I didn't find every single one of them, so I was leafing through a physical copy. But if you do have a digital version, you might be able to search and find a word that comes up over and over again. And you could certainly treat this essay kind of like a keyword essay if you wanted to, and say, how did you think luck works in the text or doesn't? Or what's a particular character's understanding of luck? That might be an interesting way to go, right? So question 4, spoiler alert again, this text seems to want to frustrate many of our expectations, right? You wanted perhaps some happiness, some glimmer of hope in this novel, and you don't get it. So Moss's death, for example, we don't see that. It happens like off screen, quote unquote. We get a report of his death, even though we had followed that character for 200 pages almost. Even though that when he dies, he seems to be on his way to reuniting with Carla Jean, right? So in the text has the opportunity to make this into a kind of romance or comedy. And what I mean by comedy is a kind of classical sense of that word, where the family is reunited at the end of the text. We get that opportunity. Moss is going across the country. He's going to get back with Carla Jean, but it doesn't happen. And we don't, not only does it not happen, but we don't even see him die. So McCarthy, I think, is doing something very explicitly there, kind of playing with our expectations. As Bell says, I can think of no reason in the world that for that no good to have killed that girl. And he's talking about Carla Jean, right? Even people within the novel, like, why did that happen? Why did he kill Carla Jean? That was, at least we could have had some happiness. And McCarthy cuts off that opportunity for us, right? Because to many reasons, Carla Jean's death is upsetting, right? So anything that you were kind of surprised by in the novel that it does in terms of genre or something like that, that would make a good thing to talk about for this question. And finally, question 5, you can compare No Country for Old Men to Yeats's poem Sailing to Byzantium, which we read 2 weeks back. That is where McCarthy gets the novel's name from, right? So much like the poem, the narrator of that poem seems to be an old man and doesn't understand the changes that are happening in the world around him. So the question you might ask is, why do you think McCarthy named his book after the Yeats poem? What are the similarities and differences between the two texts? What was McCarthy inspired by, right? Why did he, with an author takes and names a text, No Country for Old Men, knowing that people are going to recognize that kind of callback, what's called an allusion, Allusion. He's alluding to this earlier work of Yeats's. Why? Why did he want us to think about that text as we were reading this text? So one way you might chase that down or think through that question is aging and dying are major themes in the work, although there's little evidence that Bell learns to embrace age, right? As the narrator to Sailing to Byzantium urges us to. The narrator there says, soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing for every tatter in its mortal dress. So if we take mortal dress here to be our bodies, right? The mortal dressing that our soul is in. And we're supposed to allow our soul to clap and sing and celebrate the tatters in our bodies, right? Because those tatters, as we age, are evidence that we've aged and we've learned things, and our lives have been full and meaningful, right? So do we have a kind of critique of people like Bell, people who can't change or won't change, or people who are out of step with the world around? So I'll give you a few ways that you might answer this question, a few ways that you might think about him, right? And as Wells says of him, we don't get a ton of description of Sheriff Bell except from himself, because he's probably the largest narrator. He claims the most number of pages in the novel. As a narrator, I would guess. I haven't done the math on that, but it seems right. But Wells is one of the only characters to describe him. He says he's a redneck sheriff in a hick town in a hick county in a hick state. And in fact, very few people seem to have a high opinion of Sheriff Bell. He admits, and this is from the third bullet point, that the only reason I'm still alive is that the drug dealers have no respect for me. We get that story about how he tries to pull over a drug dealer and he just shoots up his car and he can't do anything about it, right? He can't go after them because he knows that he's outmatched by them. And when he does not catch Chigurh, for example, he says to the deputies, "Gentlemen, I think we've been out-generaled. I think that the bad guys have outsmarted us," basically, what he says. He also criticized himself, saying that he looked like a fool because he was unable to protect Moss, he was unable to protect Carla Jean, and he was unable to bring any of the bad guys of the novel to justice. He also criticizes his own ignorance and his own meanness, and we see that ignorance and meanness on full display when he uses a racial slur. What I think the text is trying to do there is to use that moment to connect to Bell's career in law enforcement. On that very same page on 64, Bell says, "There's no requirements in the Texas state constitution for being a sheriff. Not a one. You think about a job where you have pretty much the same authority as God, and there's no requirements put upon you." And we should also remember that Bell's father was a sheriff, that for pretty much as long as Texas had been a state in the United States, his family had been lawmen in it. And I think the text is really kind of gesturing towards these deep, deep, systemic racist past that many of the United States' social institutions have, particularly law enforcement, as we've seen demonstrated so vividly, so recently, and so appallingly. So I think this is a text that, or this question for question 5, you could approach in a lot of ways. You could think about any aspect of the Yeats poem, any aspect of the novel. You could use it to think about Sheriff Bell as a character, or you could follow it up in some sort of different kinds of ways. All right, y'all, hope this is useful. Get in touch if you have any questions, and I look forward to your next discussion forum post. Thanks.